Welcome back, Victory Family. I'm Jason.
And I'm Pastor Don.
And this is the Victory Podcast. Victory Family, it is so good to see you. I guess we can't say
we can't see
you.
Yeah.
We were talking about this last night.
Mm-hmm.
We can't see you, but you can see us. And I'm sorry for that.
Well,
and if you listen to the audio-only vertion of this, then
you
don't get
remove
either.
that.
But enjoy
That's true.
the soothing voice as we talk about communication.
There you
Late
go.
night radio. Do you like that voice?
I've been accused of that a time or two. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about, like I just said, communication. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest areas that communication or lack thereof gets us in trouble is in relationships.
Yes, it does.
Unfortunately. And relationships kind of either thrive or die on communication.
Oh, absolutely they do.
So you got a couple things here, and it says, what are the most often used excuses for divorce? Extramarital affairs, infidelity, trouble with finances, which never made any sense to me.
Well,
everybody has trouble with finances.
Well, of course.
Instead of just a single person having trouble with finances, now you're together having trouble with finances. Right. Things come up.
Well, the idea is and you see this in a lot of marriages. Then this is not about marriage per se.
No,
but this will illustrate the point. This is a lack of communication.
Right.
Brenda and I laughingly tell people, we got our first set of matching bedroom furniture. Bedroom suit, right? Mm-hmm. When Amanda, our second child, was a baby. Prior to that, we had bedroom furniture, but it didn't match. Right. Well, that's how we lived our life. We had what we needed, but it may not have exactly been what we're talking about with finances, Jason. Mm-hmm. We didn't get in trouble. Is all those things that your mom and dad, me and Brenda, others in our generation previous, all those things that we saved up for, hoped for, planned for, right?
Right.
That nice new house, 2 new cars, whatever it is. We waited and planned and saved to be able to afford it.
Whereas now we put everything on a credit card.
Exactly. That's where the financial problem comes in, see? Yeah.
Credit cards
they don't
are
talk
easy
about
to spend up on because it's fake money.
Well,
and if you don't communicate, hey, listen, every couple has been through this, right?
Absolutely.
Every starting out couple.
Every family goes through it.
The husband or the wife, I'll speak on my terms, right? So for a long time, early on in our marriage, I wanted a new welder. That's just the kind of job I do. That's the kind of field that I'm in. I wanted a new welder.
I remember those days.
And so I went out and I bought a new welder. Right. Now, again, I put it on a credit card without thinking to communicate with Marla, how are we doing this month? How are we, at the end of the month, are we going to be able to, pay off that $800 welder? You know what I'm saying? And was it a smart move on my point? No. Yeah. But again, as I grew as a husband, I learned to go, hey, by the way, I want this. How are we? And now, we kind of, with the beauty of online banking, we both have access to it and I can see and, we talk about it. We sit down every week and go, hey, this is where our budget is and this is what we're saving and yada, yada, yada. And so I think financial issues, while they have the potential, if you don't talk to them, to be a long-term marriage issue.
And you can get yourself in deep water really fast.
Yeah, but I think if you're a smart young couple, you'll learn to communicate, and you might have financial issues early on because you're still learning how to be a couple, right? You're going from 2 individual people to one flesh.
Right. All of a sudden, you can't say anymore, well, I want this. Yeah. No, you've got another person to think about. See,
hey, can we do this? Right.
Exactly.
So that's where if you're a smart couple, you learn to communicate. And I think the first 2, what was it? Extramarital affairs and trouble with finances are a direct relation to number 3, which is lack of communication.
Oh, I guarantee it.
If you don't communicate, you have the first 2. So I think number 3 should be number 1.
Oh, I think it is
because lack
number
of
1.
communication leads to those things.
I've sat too many times over the decades I've been doing this ministry thing, in my office, whichever office it's been, whatever city I've been in. It's all the same.
It's not unique to this church.
No, in the South and extreme northern Indiana and in the middle of Indianapolis, it's always the same thing. When a couple comes into my office and whatever problem they present to me, I promise you 99% of the time, what it comes down to is somehow, some way, we failed to communicate. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. All right, so we're going to talk about communication. You brought up counseling, right?
Yep.
Whether you get counseling for your relationship in a church setting, or whether you go and you pay, a psychologist or a therapist or whatever. Why is it easier to communicate? Is that why they have things like business mediators? They have mediation. You go through mediation and stuff like that. Why is it easier to talk with a third party? Is it because you think that third party is going to back you up, or you're going to be right, and they can kind of go, "Ha, see, I told you so." Why is it easier to communicate with a third person?
I suspect it has to do with one of two things. Either that's a third party, but that's just it. See, I'm ultimately not really, I don't have to face them but about once a week, twice a week at the most, right? That husband or wife we're talking about here,
You got to go home with them.
that's right. See, that's a lot of pressure. And let's be real honest about it, Jason. We tend to have an ego,
Yeah.
And there's nothing I like less than finding out I'm wrong.
Right.
And the easiest way to do that sometimes is to simply never talk about it.
Yeah.
See?
And you think
Until
pride,
it explodes.
pride and ego get in the way of communication?
Oh, I guarantee you, they're the root cause of bad communication. Absolutely they are.
Unfortunately, not everybody can have a personality like mine where
Well,
I go, yeah, I'm wrong.
right. Well, I'm old enough to remember Happy Days, and there was one word that the Fonz could not say.
Oh, that was
Remember?
Yeah, I'm wrong.
Yeah, he made a whole,
They did a whole episode about that.
oh yeah, well that's more true than we'd like to admit sometimes.
Yeah.
That word sticks in our throat a lot.
It may take me a little while to get around to the I was wrong,
Right.
but I always hey, I was wrong.
Sure.
So communication is, we just kind of beat it to death, but communication is kind of crucial
Well, it's crucial in more than just
in any relationship.
Oh, absolutely. It is the crucial thing in a marriage. I believe
Right.
that every other problem hinges or has its origin in poor communication. But,
Right.
Jason, it's also important when a parent's thinking about trying to raise the right kind of kids. Well, I'll give you, for instance, years ago. This is not in the notes anywhere, folks. I'm ad-libbing a little bit here, but Jason will understand. Years ago when I was in St. Louis in the early 80s, one of our church members, now I'm about 6 feet tall, one of our church members was a man named Max Palmer. And he taught me a lesson without meaning to teach me a lesson. See, Max at the time was considered to be the second tallest man in the world. He stood 7 feet 8 1/2 inches tall.
That's a big guy.
And admitted to weighing 420 pounds. I suspect he was, a little.
Yeah.
But Max was as gentle as a lamb. You would not believe it. But I learned something. When you're talking to someone who's 2 feet almost taller than you,
A little
it's
intimidating.
intimidating.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I used to wonder why kids didn't like me. And I think a lot of us here, I'm standing up, towering over them, right? Talking. Yeah. Well, I learned something. If you notice, when I'm thinking, I still do this day. If I'm talking to a child or to anyone for that matter, I don't want to stand over them and tower over them like, me authority, you not.
Yeah.
I either sit down in a pew or a chair, or with kids, I find what works real well is to kneel down where I'm on their eye level.
Yeah. And I do that with my boys.
Exactly. Then you can communicate, and you've removed a barrier. So whether it's marriage or talking to your children, or heaven forbid, you actually have to communicate on your job. Mm-hmm. Being able to communicate biblically is one of the most valuable tools I can share with anybody, quite literally for any situation.
Well, and let's say this for the young people who listen out there who may still be in school, whether that's public school education or you're at university. It's crucial to communicate with not only your peers, right, and have a healthy communication with your peers, right. I think that's why we see a lot of issues, as far as young people with social media. They don't, it's easy to communicate, be what they call a keyboard warrior, and trash each other
Everybody's
online.
a lion online.
Oh yeah, but you don't have healthy communication, and you don't
right.
have an understanding. But even more important than that is have a healthy communication with your teachers or your professors or something like that. A lot of issues can be solved, if you have an assignment due, right, and it's going to be late, and I'm not saying make something up. If you have a legitimate reason, right? If something happened, you had a sickness or, a family trip or something like that, if you just go to that teacher and say, hey, listen, this is what came up, I'm working on it. I'm going to get it in as soon as possible while trying not to make my other stuff late. That can probably save you a lot of headache come report card time.
Well, at the very least, what it's going to do is make you feel better about yourself because you did your best.
Yeah.
You're not trying to slide around, sneak around,
Yeah.
You're
when that big old zero of a goose egg shows up on your and see, kids these days have it insanely hard because our parents didn't know we were awful at school, but 4 times a year when the report card came,
basically, yeah.
Now the kids, you click and log into the app, and your parents can see literally what you have not done.
Yeah, it's not a wise idea to try and hide that, is it?
So even now, it's very important that you communicate.
Oh yeah, it's like we used to play a game called Beat the Check to the Bank.
Oh yeah, beat the report card to the mailbox.
Yeah. That's a bad idea now.
Yeah. So again, that we talk a lot about married people, but you have relationships in all different forms of your life. Whether you're a student, whether you're a worker, effective communication.
Right.
I communicate very differently outside of the workplace because I understand what my job is.
Right.
Right. I understand that when I go into that customer's facility, right, no matter how much hostility or anger or, upset, you know what I mean? Realistically, when machines break that I work on, it's costing that place tens of thousands of dollars an hour to be broken. You know what I mean? So they're rightly so very upset. And so when I go into that and I meet it with hostility and go, when they come to me and they say, oh, your machine's a piece of junk. Well, if I match that level, we never get anything.
Exactly.
And then I get in trouble, right?
Exactly.
So, knowing how to communicate is vitally important. So own our words, or what can we do? How do we communicate? What are the points? Okay.
Let me read a few verses from Ephesians 4. Let's get started that way.
Okay.
Says, beginning in verse 22, that you put off concerning the former conversation of the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust. So this is the simple principle the Bible teaches for all positive change in a Christian life. People make the Christian life, Jason, a lot harder than it really is. Positive change in the Christian life comes down to exactly 2 things and 2 things only.
Right.
First one is Ephesians 4:22, put off. That means there's something in my life, and I know deep down inside I'd be better off without it. Well, God's not going to do that for me. He expects me to get rid of it. If you've got a mountain of junk in your living room, you look at it and think, I'm never going to use this stuff. What do you do with it?
Pitch it in the garbage.
You throw it out. Same thing is true in your life. So you put off concerning the old man, that which is corrupt according to deceitful lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. And here it is, and that you put on the new man. People's problem, Jason, this is the ultimate principle of communication before we even get into the rules of communication. If I realize I'm communicating poorly, the first thing I got to do is say, you know what? I'm doing a terrible job at this. I got to get rid of these old habits I've got. The temper explosions that I do. Realistic people say, I can't help myself. Yeah, we can. We do it because we don't want to have a discussion, and that hurts people, it intimidates them, and it shuts them up. See?
Yeah.
So put that off. Get rid of it. But then it says, and put on the new man. In other words, it's not enough to stop doing the bad things. Find something good to put in its place. That principle will work in literally any and every phase of your life if you want to get better at something. Now, reading on. Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. That's how you do it. That's communication. That's the simple principle. People don't realize, Jason, the Bible just works.
Yep.
It's just simple as that. There's no book in the world more practical than the Bible is. Good relationships don't happen automatically. We're all sinners. We all have a propensity for doing the worst possible thing at the worst possible time. We're not immune to problems. We all have them. And whether we are I tend to relate this very strongly to marriage because I believe that's the single most important relationship anyone ever enters into.
I think our relationship with God is more important.
Okay, you got me there, yeah. But, and again, you know what? God follows these rules of communication.
You got to be able to communicate with God.
Yeah, but from a practical standpoint, from a down here standpoint,
yeah,
that marriage is designed to last a lifetime, right?
Right.
And this is another principle that we teach that people don't get. My relationship with my children from the beginning was supposed to be a temporary relationship. Mm-hmm. The whole point was I'm supposed to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, teach them, train them, in other words, to the point to where they are able to go out and live their lives as God-fearing, functioning adults, right?
Right.
Temporary relationship. On the other hand, my relationship with my wife is supposed to last me till one of the two of us is no longer on this earth. It's a permanent relationship.
Right.
I think I do prioritize that one. But having said that, you said it a minute ago, whatever relationship, communication is a big, big deal. So I'm going to lay aside that old stuff that has to do with my old sinful nature, and I'm going to replace it with the things God says are better.
Now, you've got a couple points here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pose the question before you go into these.
Okay.
Right? Can proper communication be taught?
Yes. It is not something some people think, well, I'm just no good at talking. I'm not talking about standing in front of people and preaching a sermon.
Well, you have a granddaughter, right?
I have several, yes.
I have, this one in particular, yes. I love her to death.
Uh-huh.
But she can barely order her own food.
Uh-huh. True.
And it's not so much that she lacks the skill to say what she wants.
Right.
She has little confidence in that area.
Exactly right.
So confidence is kind of a part of communication.
Sure.
Would you agree?
I agree totally.
So, I think if you're going to be an effective communicator, it has to almost be taught. Because you have to be taught,
sure it is,
and gain the confidence. That's why I think if you're learning how to be confident, you're learning how to. And we're not saying go up and be a public speaker, speak in front of tens of thousands of people. But
start with two.
But you should be able to have a communication one-on-one with a server, right?
Sure, you should.
Or somebody taking an order or something like that. Because if you can't have those basic communication skills, then when you get into a relationship, that relationship won't be as healthy as it could be because you won't have the confidence to communicate with that person.
Well, and you end up being miserable because you have something that's on your mind,
right?
Something that's troubling you in your heart, right? But if you lack this determination, the confidence to actually confront the problem, then it's just going to sit inside of you and it's just going to eat you up. Well, and that's not healthy either.
No, and to that stretch of the imagination, you're ordering food, right? If you don't have the confidence to say what you want, you don't get what you want.
That is true.
You know what I mean? So having communication can lead to happiness.
Right.
Because
Well, it's critical.
Everybody likes wings, and if you can't order your own wings, then you're not happy.
Well, or you're going to get the wrong sauce or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's start the training process. How do we learn to be effective communicators?
Okay.
Biblical communicators.
We're going to go to the Bible and assume God made me. God knows me better than I know myself.
Right.
That's my ultimate go-to for human anything. God built me. If I want to know how, you mentioned one of your machines, the last thing you want to do is give me a wrench and a screwdriver and tell me, hey, White Cotton, go fix this, 6-digit machine cost-wise, right?
Yeah.
Because I have no clue what I'm doing with the thing.
Most of them are 7.
But here's the deal. If you go to the person who designed that machine, who built that machine, who knows how that thing is supposed to work,
right,
they get it, right?
Yep.
Well, same thing is true.
With the Bible.
If I want to understand how human nature, me, right. You, work, why would I not go to the one who made me in the first place? He designed me.
The engineer of the universe.
That's right. So I'm going to go to the Bible. Right. And the Bible, as it always does, gives me these principles. And if I put off the way I've been doing stuff and put on God's way, it's always going, I'm not going to say it always, no, you won't always have peace and harmony because there are 2 people involved here.
Right. You cannot accommodate, and the Bible cannot accommodate, unless I would like to say, even if they're both, God-fearing, Bible-believing people, that communication is always foolproof. Unfortunately, it's not.
There are ways.
But you, again, like you said, like we tell our kids, as long as you do your best, right. You'll always feel good and you'll never be in trouble.
Exactly right. And that's the whole point here. I'm going to do it right even if the other person does it wrong because I can only control me.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the Bible gives us kind of blueprints, in my speak, for communication.
That's correct. And if I follow the blueprints, I'll get the right result.
Right. It may not always be the wanted result, though.
But I'll get the right result.
The right result.
Yeah, exactly. For instance, remember that. First thing.
Okay.
Says in verse 25, wherefore putting away lying, let every man speak truth with his neighbor, right? This is so difficult to understand. I'm being sarcastic because I told Jason earlier when I learned these in a counseling class I took with my wife many years ago up in Lafayette, Indiana. I thought I talk for a living.
Yeah.
I thought I know how to communicate.
Well, it's easy to talk.
And there's
but
a lot
talking's not communication.
There are a lot of people who talk a lot and don't communicate at all. That's true.
Yeah.
But anyway, the more that teacher got up there and taught these things, the worse I felt because I realized, nope, I don't do that very well at all, actually. And this is the first thing they hit me with was this: be honest.
And that's what that verse says.
Exactly.
Verse 25
Speak
says
truth. Stop lying. Speak truth. Exactly. Now, they said there are 6 things before you ever bring up a problem. Let's face it. Communication is easy if there are no problems, right? The critical thing is when there's a problem, how am I going to communicate to solve the problem? Well, 6 things they mentioned. We'll go over them very quickly here. Always ask yourself, am I sure I've got the facts right? Bible says he that answers a matter before he hears it, it's foolishness and shame to him. So I need to make sure I've got all the information. You know what I'm talking about. Brenda had to stop me years ago and retrain me because, like a lot of pastors, I got into a habit of listening to people just long enough to think I had the right answer.
Right.
And then, okay, you can stop talking now. It's my turn.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is I may not have all the facts yet. So sometimes when we talk to our kids, Jason, as dads, we do that a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So do I have the facts right? 1 Peter 4:8 says love covers a multitude of sins. Sometimes I just ask, is this really worth it?
Yeah.
Is this just my ego wanting to be superior? Or is this a problem that really needs to be handled?
So I think that one kind of goes, am I going into this looking to communicate a problem, or am I going into this looking to fight the problem?
Yeah. Basically,
you know what I'm saying?
Am I trying to solve the problem, or am I just trying to make myself look superior?
Right.
That's it, yes. The third one is the timing right? We've all had this happen to us. You walk in the door.
When you're angry is not the right time.
You've had a horrible day. Your boss just called you in on the carpet and treated you like a junior high 6th grader, right?
Yeah.
And just let you have it. And your customers, whatever happened to them, they were not in a good mood. And all day long you've been getting yelled at and told how dumb you are and how inept you are. You know, when you walk in the door, that may not be the best time for your wife to confront you with a problem.
No.
There's a sensitivity issue there. If you know somebody well enough, you can say, ooh, you don't look like you're in a good mood at all. And that might be the time to say, maybe I'll bring this up later.
Right. And a good thing to remember, as far as when you enter your home, right, you are entering your safe haven.
Yes.
Right? Or you should be, at least. Right? Anybody that lives within your home, you should feel comfortable communicating with. And when, no matter how hard I try sometimes, I try not to take work personally, right? Again, I did not design that machine. I'm just the guy that has to fix it.
Exactly.
Right? So that's not me personally. When you try to shed off work when you get to the front door, sometimes you walk through that front door and it's still hanging there with you. You still got a bad taste in your mouth about it. And even if your wife comes to you or your husband comes to you or your children come to you and they just start in on you with a problem and this, that, and the other, that's when you take a step back and you go, listen, I've had a bad day, right? Can we, it's not that I think your problems or your issues are not valid or they're not, requiring my attention, but now is not the best time.
Can I decompress for a little while?
Let's go sit down and turn on the TV for a bit, veg out, have some dinner. Let's talk about this after, I was able to let that go.
You just hit the nail literally on the proverbial head.
Right.
The whole key to that is set a precise, don't say, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Well,
later never comes.
That's right. Later is always later.
Yeah.
Right? But no, let me do this. Let's sit down together, just kind of decompress a little while, have a little dinner, and after dinner,
Let's
or
talk
if
about
you've got kids and it's a sensitive issue, maybe when we put the kids to bed, whatever, then we'll sit down and have this conversation.
Right.
And I promise you will. And be good about it. That again, that's honesty, see. I have to ask myself, is my attitude right?
Yeah.
Like you said a minute ago, why do I want to deal with this again? Is it just my ego getting the better of me? Or is this a problem that really needs to be handled? Are my words loving? I mean, the Bible talks about speaking the truth in love. And Jason, that may be the hardest thing for us to do, man. Yeah. Speaking the truth in love. Do them both. I mean, saying the right thing, the needed thing, but saying it in such a way that the person knows I really do love them. And the one we miss, Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to thine own understanding. All thy ways acknowledge him, he'll direct your paths, right?
Right.
Have I prayed about this yet? You would think that'd be the first thing we would think of as Christians, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. Just a simple, short, little 2-sentence prayer. Hey, God, I know we got to talk about this, and I'm going to mess it up if I do this. So would you please just help me, God, to do this your way?
And that's why it's okay to step back because, again, if you are blindsided and somebody wants to communicate with you,
exactly.
Right, if you haven't had a time to step back, collect your thoughts on the matter, and pray about it, don't communicate.
Right.
Don't enter into that communication again, because then you're not going to have all the facts. You're not going to be loving. You're not going to, you know what I mean? You are going to, and we're going to talk about this.
And if my motivation is wrong, the result will almost certainly be wrong.
Yeah. So, and we have some other points, and we're going to talk about this,
sure we are.
A little further on down. But again, that's why point 4, you guys don't know what point 4 is. We know what point 4 is. That's why point 4 is very, very important.
Right.
And so speaking is a must do. I mean, if you start yelling and hollering and screaming, I mean, just speak, talk.
Verse 25, when it says speak every man truth, that's actually a command. See, not talking is not an option. I'm disobeying God if I clam up.
Right.
If I just say, I don't want to talk about this. Not now, not ever. Right? We've all kind of done those little things, right?
Yeah.
Don't bring it up again.
Well, there's a difference between saying, hey, listen, let's go into private. Let's talk about this privately. Or let's decompress. Let's step away for a second. We'll talk about it at this designated time. Right? If you just go, man, you know what? Forget you. I'm not talking about this.
Right.
That's not it. That's not it.
It's going to end badly.
Yeah.
You may get your way for a short period of time, but I flat promise you, at some point in time, bad things that we assume too much with Jason. We do. We assume if you really knew me at all, if you really loved me, you'd know what I'm thinking. Yeah. Why? Half the time I don't know what I'm thinking for sure.
Right.
It changes too much.
90% of the time it's cake.
Exactly.
I want cake.
Or something that I don't need. Exactly, yeah. Cake, pie,
Cookies.
whatever it may be. Cookies,
Can you tell we're on a diet?
Yeah, exactly. People can't read your minds. Don't assume they can. Clamming up is never an option for a Christian. Just, that part where you just kind of go, nope, not going to talk.
You sit on your hands and you close your mouth.
If I do that, I'm disobeying God. What is obeying God is speaking the truth.
Right. Again, that goes back to, do you have the facts?
Exactly. We wrote down just some examples. See, we assume dishonesty means I told a flat-out lie. Not really.
Half-truths, white lies.
Outright deceit.
Yeah.
If, for instance, what I say conflicts with how I look when I say it, you know what I mean? You do it all the time.
You know how many times I've heard she said it to me this morning, and I'm going to tell her in a little bit because I said something, and the look on my face did not match the words that were coming out of my mouth.
Exactly right.
Sometimes you got to control the face with the words.
Well, you learn with a baby, for instance.
Right.
If you smile at a baby and you look all bright-eyed and all cheerful, they have no clue what you're saying. They react to how you look when you say it, right?
That's why if you're smiling and you go, "Oh, you're such a dumb dog." Yes, you are.
Exactly.
The dog is like, "Oh, I'm a good boy." Huh?
That's right. See, they're happy.
Yeah.
Well, that's body language.
Yeah.
And when my body language and my verbal language disagree, that sends a message that's just confusing, and it's a little dishonest, to be honest with you.
Right.
Or if you beat around the bush and you use innuendos, you exaggerate, or you keep secrets, and that's never healthy.
Yeah. Secrets don't make friends.
We were taught to avoid what we call always words. You know them, right? You always burn the toast.
Yeah.
Well, now, okay, 99% of the time could be true, but always probably not.
Or you never. Well, chances are they do
at some point in time.
You just
exactly
are failing to recognize it in this point because it fits your narrative.
If I'm going to be truthful, then that's the problem I've got. And if I'm going to be truthful, then I'm going to have to just deal with the fact that that's what I'm going to do, and that's it.
So let's talk about these things before people. We have like 4 more of these points to go through. So this is going to be a part 2-er.
That's correct.
So avoid these things. Always words.
Yep.
Ultimatums. Right. Sarcasm.
Yep. Don't be brutal. With the term we use is brutally honest.
Yeah.
No, remember, speak the truth in love.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. If I'm trying to communicate, it's not so I can be right and I can win an argument.
Right. Man, that's one I got to learn.
I know. Well, we all do. I mean, I read this morning in Ephesians 5, just one chapter over, where God gets all in my business and tells me that a husband, that I'm supposed to love my wife just like Christ loves his church.
Yeah.
And boy, communication comes into play there, because that means I'm always supposed to have her best interests in mind, not my rightness in mind, see? I'm supposed to be concerned about what's best for her. Well, conversely, she's supposed to be concerned about what's best for me. Right. We do that. Communicating is not nearly as hard, We can speak the truth, but it's with each other's best interest. And Colossians 4:6 puts it this way, Jason: let your speech be always with grace.
Grace is a hard thing sometimes.
Well, that's because it's always been hard.
Well, it's because we're sinners and we're human.
We're sinners.
Mortal,
We've always been sinners, but now it's gotten worse because this is the social media generation. And like we said,
it's easy to be a keyboard warrior.
Everybody's a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, it's easy to be.
My goodness, there's not a whole lot of grace in a whole lot of social media,
No.
And God says, no.
That's not the kind of honesty.
That's right. So I'm going to avoid whether I'm keyboarding or communicating verbally. I'm going to avoid those always words because they're never really accurate. I'm going to avoid giving ultimatums. If you don't do, those kind of things.
Yeah. Because
it's going to, sooner or later, they're going to get tired of your ultimatum and say, fine, do it.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You just paint yourself into a corner. One of my favorite things to do, and I try and avoid it whenever possible anymore because I know people don't get it. Sarcasm.
When I first met you, I did not understand your sarcasm.
Most people don't. That's the problem with sarcasm. If you're really good at being really sarcastic, Jason, that's the point. Yeah. People have no idea if you're serious or not. Well, and that's what it is. It's a tool. It's supposed to shut people down.
Yeah.
And, it put you in a position and in words that injure. Words whose whole purpose is to hurt the other person.
Yeah. Because that leads to non-effective communication. Well, because if you're using it as a tool to injure, then what you're doing is you're wounding your, quote, opponent.
Yep. You're fighting a war.
So you can win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're forgetting, whether it's in church, at the office, in the factory, or, God forbid, in the home, this is not an adversarial relationship.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be on the same team.
Yeah, and it's, man, I tell you, sometimes it is hard. So let's do this. Sum up honesty for us, and let's ask our listeners to practice a little honesty this week.
Sounds good. Remember, honesty is being truthful, but being truthful in love and grace. Yeah. That's the key. God is honest with us at all times, right? Mm-hmm. But God is also always gracious and honest with and loving with us.
Right.
That's the key. Now, I'm not near as good at it, so I'm going to need a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Little things like that W word that none of us like to say.
Yeah.
I was wrong. That'll go a long way.
Yeah.
Listening before the mouth opens.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Get the facts.
Yeah, here we go again. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. No. See, you're not, at that point, you're not listening anymore.
And you don't have the facts.
And you're not going to have the facts because you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
There's something in there that you need to catch, but the wrong attitude about it will make sure you don't catch it.
Right.
So if I'm going to be honest about it, then I'm going to remember, okay, the point, and we'll talk about this down next week a little bit. The person is not my adversary. We're on the same side here. There's a problem. Biblical communication solves problems. And the person is not the problem. The problem is the problem.
Right.
That's where honesty comes in, Jason.
Pastor Don, let's pray for our listeners and let's give them some homework.
Lord, whether we're talking about some keyboard warrior or someone who's just struggling in their relationships with this, Lord, and I know there are people who are afraid they're going to say the wrong thing or not say it right. Well, Lord, if you will give them grace, if you will give them help, the courage to work on this, then I know they'll see good things, and I pray they'll depend on you for help, and they'll see good results because your word always works. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay,
Amen. Homework. Be honest.
Number one, stop avoiding that conversation that you've been putting off now for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Plan it out.
Figure it out.
Pray it out. Oh, please pray it out.
That's step one.
Yeah.
Pray on it.
You better believe it. Remind yourself over and over again, the problem is the problem. The person is not the problem.
Right.
And talk with the person to solve the problem.
Right. And just be honest.
Yeah, be honest with each other. Admit your own faults. Go easy on their faults. They know them already. And tell the truth. You'll be amazed how far you'll get.
Amen. Victory family, it is such a blessing to have you with us. Stick around next week for part number 2, where we'll go through the rest of these points, hopefully, in one episode. If you'd like to know more about us or the Victory Podcast or the mission that we have, visit www.victoryindy.org. There you can find out all kinds of information about Victory Baptist Church here in Indianapolis, directions, links to, find out more information about Pastor Don and how to reach out to us. Yes. You can also support this mission there through the online giving tab. If you click on the Victory Podcast, you can find out links to all of our social media, Facebook, YouTube, things like that, as well as Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. It's such an encouragement to have you listen to us every week. And until the next time, we hope to see you Sunday morning. Bye.
Goodbye.